everybody, and welcome to our YouTube channel, Relationship Builders Forum. My name is Amara.
And my name is Gospel.
I just want to bid every single one of you a warm welcome. If you're new on our channel, please do well to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell next to it so you know when we put content out. To all our returning subscribers, it's always a joy to have you. Today, we're going to be having a conversation around
bullying in relationship.
Yes.
Obviously, sometimes people might be in a relationship and things are not really happening the way they want those things to happen. It could be that you're in a relationship where you're feeling stressed, you're feeling like you're not yourself, you're feeling like you don't have a life, you're feeling like something is not right. It could be because someone is bullying. It could be that you're being bullied. It could also be that you are the one bully.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, you could be in a kind of relationship where you're being bullied. You're not aware.
Absolutely.
It could also be that you're the one bullying someone, but you're not aware. So today we want to look at bullying.
And how you can identify bullying behaviors. And I think it's really important that we talk about this because this is one of the dysfunctions in a lot of relationships. And relationship could be much better if, like you rightly said, if people can identify that these behaviors either in others or in themselves and address those behaviors.
Exactly. And we also want to point out beforehand that we are not here to judge you or to make you feel like, oh, you're a bully. The thing is, sometimes we do things because that's how we are wired. That's what we've seen other people do. That's the culture we've observed. And we take on those habits without actually knowing that we are impacting negatively on others.
Yeah.
It could also be that we've not set boundaries on how people should treat us and we take on anything.
Yeah.
Maybe because of your personal experience, you become like a doormat where you don't feel okay until someone does something hurtful to you.
Absolutely.
And then because you absorb those kind of behaviors, you think this is what it means to be a good person, but that's not right. So today we are looking at some of those signs
of bullying.
Exactly.
Yes. And I just want to also add that you could find it a little bit distressing because some people have been through that, and we just want to say offhand that we recognize that this is not one of those conversations that is a pleasant one. It's not a comfortable conversation to have. Let's start by defining bullying. I think repeated behaviors. People tend to have that, and it's done to intentionally harm somebody. It's done to intentionally hurt somebody else's feeling. And it could apply in different contexts. And a lot of times when we talk about bullying, they look at it within the context of schools. But we find that bullying does exist even in relationship. We find it in workplaces as well. And one of the things really important to note here is that someone is being targeted, someone who is considered vulnerable, someone who is considered weak. And that's taking advantage of that sort of imbalance in that situation. And there are different forms of bullying. They're verbal, physical, emotional. And we will talk about how you can identify the signs, especially within the context of relationship.
One of the signs of bullying is constant criticism. If you're in a relationship where you don't have a voice, what you say doesn't matter, and your appearance is criticized, your decisions are criticized, the things you do are criticized. It's not like it's a one-off thing. It is repeated. Then you're being bullied. You might not see it as bullying, but that's what it is because it makes you feel little. It makes you feel less of yourself. It makes you lose your self-confidence. So in a relationship, like we've always said, is an environment where people should thrive to become the best version of themselves.
The second behavior is controlling behavior. And some people are in a relationship where they have the other partner is controlling of their finances, is controlling of what they do, controlling of where they go, controlling of their social interactions, controlling of their daily activity, limiting people's independence, limiting their autonomy. That in itself is a bullying behavior. People have their own mind. People should be able to make their own decision, or at least have a conversation and you come to a point where someone sees reason with where you're going. But when you find that controlling behavior in a relationship, that in itself is a dysfunctional sign.
I think some people think that being married means loss of freedom. Some people think once someone is married, they don't have sense of independence. They don't have independent minds. They don't have a voice. They can't do things by themselves. And I see some culture where male dominance is expressed this way, where the woman doesn't have a voice. It's what the man says that is what is done.
Yeah.
And you see a woman who before marriage was very lively, exuberant, have so much zest to life and all of those. Once this person is married, it's as if this person just shrivels or goes into oblivion. And you're wondering what's going on here. Because one of the reasons is that the man may be a bully. Unfortunately, he might not even know that he's actually a bully. Yeah. For him, that's how to show that you're the man.
I also want to add here that there's some culture, like I said, cultural nuances. And it's just some things people take on without necessarily recognizing that this is a behavior that they're exuding. And I think just having that awareness is really important for you to be able to address it, or for you to be able to unlearn those sort of behaviors and recognize the value in the other person. Relationship is to help extend you, is to help make you better, is to add value. So when someone comes into the relationship with value and you're not recognizing it due to your controlling behavior, I think that's counterproductive. It's like self-sabotaging your relationship. Now that's what that behavior does.
So obviously, relationships should give you freedom within the bounds of responsibility. And you have reason, exactly. You have to be yourself. In fact, you should fly within your relationship. So not just for the guys, but for the women.
Absolutely.
It's a mutual thing. So if you see yourself in this kind of situation, there is need for you to start thinking, what do we do to allow this relationship to be the best it's supposed to be? The other behavior that you could see as a sign of bullying is emotional manipulation. Someone wants to say things to you, do things to you because they want to manipulate you emotionally. They want you to think and feel in a certain way by the things they say and the things they do.
So there are different tactics to this. You find things like guilt talking, gaslighting, whatever it is, just to get the other person to have that sort of guilty feeling. You kind of feel like, oh, and that the other person doing this fault. Exactly. Then this other person feels powerful. They feel more in control. They feel more in charge. It kind of fuels their ego in a way that I think is very negative in that relationship.
You're right. I think sometimes what people know about you could also be used against you.
Absolutely.
Maybe you've shared things with them in your state of vulnerability. You actually want to be open to them and tell them things you've done in the past. They might not be palatable, but now they are using it against you. Maybe there's a mistake you've made and they are using that to guilt stalk you.
Absolutely.
That's a form of
bullying. Another form of bullying behavior in relationship that we tend to see all the time is threat and intimidation. So someone can resort to constant yelling, constant shouting, just because they want to get their points across. And it's a sort of like intimidating that other person. And it's down to instilling fear. It's down to dominating that other individual. And I think that this is really a negative behavior.
I agree with you, but threat and intimidation may not always be physical or overt. It could actually be the use of words. For instance, you keep saying to this person, I'm going to walk away from this relationship. I'm going to leave you. I'm going to do this. So your actions are actually a threat to this person. And that would make the person accept some things he or she is not happy to accept. It's like me telling you, if you do this, I'm going to walk away. And because you want to keep this relationship and because you don't want to lose what you've built over the years, you might want to endure certain things and stick to it. And I see this happen a lot of times where someone is enduring in a relationship and that has impacted the person's mental well-being through emotional manipulation, through intimidation and threat.
And they get to a point where literally they're imploding. They can no longer accept certain things and people don't even realize that they're struggling because you find them out there, they seem very happy, they seem to have everything all going, but inside they're chipping away. And it's impacting significantly and massively on their mental well-being.
Exactly. And it could also lead to the next point, which is isolation. And when you feel like you're being isolated, emotional isolation, which is also part of loneliness, because you live in a house with someone, but you can't really communicate. You can't connect with this person because the person has made you feel less of yourself.
True.
That in itself is not right. And sometimes they do it on purpose to isolate you from your social network, from people who can support you.
True.
And once they do that, the essence of it is to have more power and control over you. Because they know if you speak to others, you might have a sense of awareness that this is not right.
True.
So they isolate you from those people. Yeah.
And keep you away from them.
Exactly.
The next point is financial manipulation. And I think this is really important because this is where the other party restricts the other person's ability to get access to their finances. And in that way, they're limiting that person. They're making it very difficult. This other person becomes the victim. And this other person financially is dependent on this other person. We see this quite a lot in a lot of relationships where we cancel people and somebody's saying, oh, in order for me to spend £10, I have to ask this other person, do you work? Yes, I work. I don't have access to my cards. I don't have access to this. I don't have access to that. I think, and sometimes the other person feels, well, I have to keep that because I am spending more in the relationship. Hence, whatever she's making is not even half what we're making. But I see that this is a pattern that is so negative, and it is seriously a toxic point in a lot of relationships.
I agree with you. And I'm looking at it from the other point, which is manipulating someone financially because you don't want them to be independent. So you decide he or she is not going to do anything. You want to be the one who is in control of all the funds or all the money because you're the one that makes all the money. And that gives you a sense of power, a sense of control. And they would always come to beg you. If he or she wants to do anything, they will definitely come to you. And because you're the one that pays the piper, you dictate the tone, they say. That is a form of manipulation because you don't want this person to have a sense of, to also make spending or use money as it is.
Yeah,
which
make
is
their
wrong.
own financial decisions
Which is very wrong. So what we are saying in effect is that you might not know it, but this is one of the ways you control or bully someone without even saying a word. Absolutely. I remember us counseling a lady and she was saying, I'm married to this man where I love over the years, but I don't know how much he earns. Each time I asked about how much do you earn so that we can plan as a family, he tells her, you don't need to know. All you need to know is that I'm giving you enough money for the family. That's not openness. That's not transparency. It means you're being secretive to someone you are spending your life with, someone you're one with. And I see that as a form of bullying.
So there's quite a lot to unpack in terms of bullying behaviors. I can go on and on. Things like verbal abuse, physical abuse, blame shifting, constantly trying to blame the other person for what's wrong in the relationship. All of these are signs of bullying. And maybe you're watching us now and maybe there's something that we kind of missed out. I would want you also to put it up in the comment section and tell us a little bit about some of the behaviors of bullying within the context of relationship, because I think it's important. You
might also be thinking, oh, the points you guys are making are not really bullying, things that would show bullying or signs of bullying. If you disagree with us, we are open-minded. You can also share your views in the comment section. Let's know what you think. Do you think these are not those signs
of bullying? And then moving on, because we really want to get to the point where we talk about how do you then deal with this? If you've identified this and you're just listening to us and like, oh, wow, that sounds like someone I'm in a relationship with. That sounds like me. Or that sounds like me, for instance. How do you navigate this? How do you deal with this? Because it's really important. And I think the first step is you having that awareness. You're coming to a point where you recognize that this is indeed a bullying behavior. So whether you are the bully or whether you are being bullied, identifying that and having a sit-down conversation. And I would want to say that this is a very sensitive conversation to have. Do not forget that there are different hurdles to navigate. There is the cultural hurdle to navigate. There are different hurdles, and you need to be able to understand who that other person is for you to engage in a meaningful conversation as it has to do with this. Choose the right time, choose the right space to come through and talk about this behavior.
Yes, communication is very, very vital. How you approach it, when you do it, and all of those. Very, important to engage in communication. And like you said earlier, it's also good to identify what bullying is and all. But sometimes you might engage in that conversation and you're not really making any headway. What do you do? One of the things you need to do is to have a self-reflection to think about how do you protect yourself from this. And one is you have to set boundaries. We talk about boundaries a lot, boundaries, set personal boundaries, and we've also talked about boundaries in terms of relationship before marriage. That is very common for people to say, oh, you need to set boundaries before we get married. But the other point is that people don't understand the importance of boundaries within marriage. Obviously, there is self-respect. There are things you should accept as an individual, and there are things you should not accept. And if you've set those boundaries, it's good you have a conversation to say, these are the things I can accept. You can't just speak to someone in a very derogatory manner and expect the person to always accept that.
Absolutely.
That is a no.
I think it's really important. Boundaries protect us. We can go on and on. Just having a conversations about boundaries is something we need to. And we've done several videos on boundaries and how you can set boundaries in relationship. We even have another live coming up soon on boundaries in relationship. And we really think that this is important because it protects you. You don't have to enable that behavior. And that's what boundary does. Boundaries, like you said, what are my no-nos? And what are my yeses in the relationship? When you put a bar and say, you know what, this is a boundary that you cannot cross. And it just speaks to self-respect. If you do not place that value on yourself, people will always overstep. And I think that it is important that you teach people how to treat you. And maybe for you as well, because sometimes people are not able to set boundaries in relationship because they haven't set boundaries in their own personal life. So you need to be able to understand and recognize, because you setting boundaries in your personal life shows how much
you value yourself and respect yourself. You're right. And I also want to add that setting boundaries most times starts before marriage. People need to see the things you accept, the things you will never accept, your no-nos, before they even think about settling down with you.
Absolutely.
And if you've not done it over time and you've been the person at the receiving end of all the bullying, I think it's time you set the boundaries and have a conversation with your better half to say, hey, hang on a minute, we need to review how we've been living our life because the way we are living is not helping me to grow. It's not helping me to be the best version of me, because your life first. You have to live to be married.
Absolutely.
You don't marry to live. You live to be married. But if you're not alive, there is no marriage for you. Mind you, marriage is just a platform. So you can become the best and do your best. And if that platform is not helping you achieve that, then there is need for you to have a sit-down conversation with the person you're in that relationship with to say, can we have a talk? Can we think about making progress so that our relationship would build us rather than destroy us?
Absolutely. In the bid to set boundaries, and just following up from the point that you raised, you set the boundaries, it's not quite working out as expected. I think it is really important that beyond that, you seek support. Seek support from friends, seek support from close counterparts, seek support from professionals. And maybe this is an intervention that's going to help the relationship, because sometimes when you introduce your own intervention internally, if it's not working, you might want to seek an intervention externally. And maybe this is something that could help your relationship. In some cultural settings, people do find it difficult to talk about issues like this. And we think it's critical because sometimes when people come to us, it is at a very bad state. The relationship is almost irreparable. And at that point, it is toxic already. There's a lot of damage. There's a lot of things to navigate. There's a lot of things to unpack. And I think it is important that you seek help and seek it early. If you have tried internally to resolve it and it's not working, seek help. If that relationship means so much to you, don't be ashamed to step out there and seek help. When you're sick, you go to the hospital. The same applies to relationship, and maybe somebody is going to help you see a different perspective. Someone is going to help you shed more light in that relationship. And I think this is really important.
Very important point you raised there. And sometimes what you need to do to change the dynamics of your relationship is to do something radical that is not expected. One of the things is you can clearly state to this person, if things don't change, I will make a move. Doesn't mean you're going to end the relationship, but you have to set boundary in terms of saying we can have our ways apart so that there will be change. Because obviously, if you don't see change, if you don't see improvement, you can't just stay that way. And sometimes fear of loss could be the motivation the other party would need to stop the behavior.
There's quite a lot we can go on talking about this, but I think we've said the core ones, a few core ones. And if there are things that you feel is really important in addressing this behavior, please put it in the comment section. I think just to wrap up, it's very important that you prioritize your safety, prioritize your well-being, prioritize your mental health. You are enough. Because sometimes people accept bullying behavior because they feel weak, they feel vulnerable. And you shouldn't be put in a position where you feel less of yourself. You are enough. And I need you to recognize there's so much value in you as an individual, and you can actually live out your purpose.
Finally, I also want to say, if you look at yourself in the mirror and you discover that there are tendencies in you, there are things, words, actions that you've done over the years, that you have exhibited over the years that show that you could actually be bullying someone in a relationship with you, I want you to just have a reflection and think of ways to change those behaviors. You can't say you love someone whereas your actions and your words are damaging and hurtful to this person. It could happen once in a while, it's understandable. But when it becomes a pattern, then you need to do something about it. Remember, we always say that love is being the best and doing the best for this person. Are you doing that? If you're not expressing love.
No. I do hope you enjoyed this conversation and you took some value from it. And please leave us a comment so we know what you've taken away from this, and kindly share the video to people you think would find this useful as well. Give us a thumbs up. And we love always having this conversation. Just in case you forgot to hit the subscribe button and you're new on our channel, please do that now. And please turn on the bell next to it so you know we put content out. To all our returning subscribers, we love you. Until the next one, it's goodbye.